Just get me in the game. I'll be good. Let me just play, and then I'll get my just rewards at that point. I've had the door slammed on me. I've had, people laugh at me. I've had people just turn their backs on me. And I would just tell myself, okay, that's one no out of the way that gets me closer to a yes.
From the news team at LinkedIn, I'm Jessi Hempel, and this is Hello Monday. It's our show about the changing nature of work and how that work is changing all of us. Everybody knows Mark Cuban. Even if you don't know exactly why you know the name Mark Cuban, you do. If his name were a brand, it would stand for confidence, success, and the ease of dispensing advice that everybody wants. I mean, seriously, you want to sit down at the table with this guy, and that's exactly what we're going to do today. Now, who is Mark Cuban exactly? Mark founded one of the original internet streaming sites, broadcast.com. He owned the Dallas Mavericks, the basketball team, for 23 years. But really, you probably know him from TV. Mark was on the show Shark Tank for 15 seasons. That's 15. He and his fellow sharks would dispense business advice and offer life-changing deals to entrepreneurs. Last month, we invited Mark Cuban to come into our studio for a special conversation for our premium members. It was live, one of those conversations where lots of folks who were watching also got to ask questions. The energy was electric, and if you want to see the whole thing, you can. I'll drop a link in the show notes, and if you're a premium member, voila, you can see it. I wanted to bring you my favorite parts of this conversation in today's episode. Here's Mark Cuban.
I always get asked about risk specifically, and to me, whether it was starting a business or investing in a business, if I knew my stuff, right, if I was prepared, it wasn't a risk. The risk comes from lack of knowledge, lack of preparation. I think people think that there's just a stream of opportunities that come, walking right in front of you, and you just pick the one and, you just try to find the one with the least amount of risk. But risk is correlated to your knowledge base and your ability to learn.
Okay, so I want to dig in on this one. This is my question. I wonder a lot about how we make good decisions when we don't have all the information. Because so often I get trapped in I just need more information. I cannot make this decision because I need more when more is never coming.
Right. I mean, that's going to happen, right? And it just depends on the upside versus the downside. It's just dealing with probability. What's the upside versus the downside? And if I can't deal with the downside, you don't do it. Whether it's financial, whether it's time, whether it's emotional, whether it's relationship-based, there are going to be decisions we all have to make at various points of time where even the upside, even if it's enormous, it's not worth the downside.
Right. I love that. Okay, this question comes to us from Alex in the U.S. When should an early-stage startup patent its product? What makes it a cost-effective way to protect IP? And when is it just not really worth the effort?
So that is a great question in the AI era, right, or the AI age, because pre-AI, I would have given you a different answer. Most things are not worth patenting, AI or otherwise. It's expensive, it's time-consuming, and by definition, you have to show whatever it is your product or service is to be eligible for the patent. And so I typically recommend it against it because you have about a year from the start until you have product market fit and traction.
Sure.
In the era of AI, I'd rather go with trade secrets for most things.
Yeah.
Because when you publish that, every single foundational AI model is spidering the patent office, and it's immediately going in there. And you can just ask AI now, well, okay, find me, a patent that does this,
right,
and then modify it enough so I can turn it into my own patent. I think we're moving very quickly into an age of siloing IP so that you own it and you protect it, and the bots, literally the AI bots, can't get to it. Because once it gets into a large language model, you have, ChatGPT, 500 million monthly users. Who have access to everything you've done.
And I think yours.
It's not just about patents either. If you're running a hospital, if you're doing research, if you're a scientist, it used to be publish or perish.
Yeah. Okay, look, we are getting into AI, which we love here at LinkedIn to talk about. So let me ask you, in what ways can AI help early-stage entrepreneurs punch above their weight against more established competitors? I really want an example here.
In every single way. It is shocking to me how good AI can be to do all the blocking and tackling stuff for a startup. Write me a business plan. Show me a cash flow projection. You may not understand accounting. For the most part, it does. It's like having every business professor, every university available at your fingertips. They're not always going to be right.
Right.
And they may disagree from time to time, but you're going to be able to get a response. And on top of that, you can just ask it, okay, Perplexity, pretend now that I've told you about my company and my idea and you've written this business plan, pretend you're a competitor.
Right.
And tell me how, as a competitor, you would try to put me out of business. And what should I do to respond to that? There are things that, it's like having me right there for you. Like, I don't even ask myself the question. Like, I'll ask all the different AI models questions about a business just to see what it says. Because, going back in the day, I used to go to the library or bookstores and I would just walk around and I didn't have any money. So I would sit there and read books. Yeah. I would sit there and read magazines because in my mind, one idea, one piece of information could be the difference between success and failure. Now, all those books, all those magazines are right there on your phone, right there on your desktop where you can ask it anything. Right. So if you're a startup entrepreneur, ask it everything. There's no stupid questions. And literally now you've got to take it to the other AIs to confirm and, make sure it's accurate. But it is the best thing ever for entrepreneurs.
I love that. I love that so much. We have so many people in the audience, and Bob Willingham in Texas who comes to us with this question. Okay. Bob says, what's one lesson from your experience that can help others drive meaningful impact with AI in complex sectors like the public domain?
Well, Bob, that's up to you.
Yeah.
Where's your heart at? Where's your head at? Where's your effort at? What type of impact do you want to have? And what can you learn that would give you something that's differentiated? I think what people need to realize is when you want to accomplish something, regardless of the sector, you have to ask yourself, how are you going to differentiate? Yeah. And then how are you going to protect that? I always ask myself, if I was the competition, how would I kick my own ass? Right?
Yeah.
Because there's no business that there's no business that doesn't have competition or won't shortly, right? So you've got to try to anticipate. So if you want to have an impact that changes the world, like, I started this company, costplusdrugs.com, and we are, if you go to costplusdrugs.com, you put in the name of the medication, we actually show you our cost. We show you our markup because I'm a big believer that there's actually a formula for trust. Trust equals your transparency divided by your self-interest. And so for us to really have an impact on the healthcare industry and the pharmaceutical industry, we had to garner trust because that's the one thing missing in all of healthcare on the financial side is trust. And so we're transparent. We're the only pharmacy company that shows their whole price list. And our self-interest is only a 15% margin. And so that's a low denominator, so people trust us.
Okay, so I love your trust formula. I have heard a trust formula iterated many times, and it's different than that. It is trust equals consistency over time. How is that related to or connected?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily go with that definition because if you're ripping off somebody, like I'll go back to the pharmaceutical industry, right? There's this thing called pharmacy benefit managers.
Sure.
And they've been doing the same thing for a long time. And they've been retaining a lot of customers by giving them rebates and a lot of misleading efforts. Yet that's consistent.
Yes.
And it's been over a long period of time. And so I think in this day and age, you have to be transparent. Whether you're a politician, whether you're a business person, whatever you may be, transparency is key.
Okay, so much of what's important about this day and age is that things are moving so much quicker than they have before in business and beyond, and with such a level of complexity, often driven by AI. And it leads me to ask one of my favorite questions.
Ask away.
What's one job that you'd never let AI replace?
It doesn't exist yet. And what I mean by that is when we look at new technologies, and historically it's worked, we say, let's take this new PC and we're going to create these things called spreadsheets. And we're going to, change how people do analysis of real estate deals. Ask the question, what if? You couldn't do that before PCs and spreadsheets. You couldn't do that. With AI, things are going to evolve.
Yeah.
Whatever your skill set is, you can amplify it with AI. But where you sell it, how you apply it, how you're rewarded for it is going to change as well, because anybody who's willing to invest the time, their skills are going to increase as well. And so I don't think it's so much jobs being replaced
Right.
as you're going to have to know how to contribute in different ways. And that sounds scary now, but let me just tell you, having been in the technology industry a long time, I would walk into companies and people say, I don't need to use a PC. I've got this person here and that person there with pen and paper. See that guy there with the eye shade and the 10-key adding machine? That's worked for 30 years. Then we got to the point where there was the internet, right? I started a company called AudioNet with my friend Todd Wagner. I was like, there's got to be a way that we can listen to Indiana basketball in Dallas, Texas. Because up until then, we literally had to put a radio in Bloomington, Indiana next to a speakerphone and do the same thing on our end. And so we started something called net broadcasting, right? Everybody told me I was an idiot. No one's ever going to use this internet thing, yet it's completely changed. You're seeing traditional media gone, right?
Right. So I really hear what you're saying, this idea that we just need to figure out how to apply what we have, what we know how to do in different ways to meet that future. Okay, this question comes from Chirag Menden in Mumbai. Thank you for this. If you were 22 again and just starting your career in today's world, what specific skill or mindset would you focus on first to get ahead?
I got a job at a company called Mellon Bank out of college.
Sure.
And I was basically a new hire, hadn't been there 2 months, and I was reading this magazine called Entrepreneur, way back when. And there was this article about how companies could save money on their Social Security contributions for their employees. So I sent the CEO, like I had just started months earlier, I sent the CEO a copy of this magazine and bookmarked the article. And he sent me a thank you note back. My boss went nuts, right? What are you doing talking to this guy? But, I still think I learned a lot from that, even though I got stepped on, because I was curious, and that was appreciated. And if you're curious, you're going to find new ways to contribute.
Well, listen, I want to go back to that 22-year-old. I've been thinking a lot about education, college, post-college, and I'm curious if you encourage somebody like that to get an MBA. Like, who should get an MBA?
No, I hate MBAs, yeah. I've never been a fan of MBAs. I just think that at that point, you can take a lot of those same classes undergrad. You may not have as smart of people in the classroom with you to network with and to challenge you, but accounting is accounting. Yeah, there's some complexities when you get advanced, but I think getting an undergrad business degree is good enough, and then getting out into the real world. I'm not a big fan of MBAs.
Okay, well, you heard it here. So let's talk about that real world, and specifically, Mark, I want to talk about how we make decisions with confidence. So let's start with the idea of confidence. Is this something as a quality that you have or don't have, and how can you cultivate it?
I'm confident, sometimes too much so, but it all turns back to my preparation. It actually starts with self-awareness. You know what you've done. I'm not, we all fake it till we make it at some level because we're all walking into situations at any given point in time that we've never seen before. And so you've got to figure out, you've got to find a way to get to the point where you've covered as many bases as you can so that when you walk into the room, you feel like you're an equal of everybody there.
Yeah.
They may be older, they may be richer, they may have a better title, but if they haven't outworked you, if they haven't out-prepared you, then you have every reason to be confident. If you were out last night until 4 a.m., got 6 minutes of sleep, and you didn't do the preparation because you went and watched the game and hung out with your buddies, you're not going to be confident.
It's probably not going to be there for you. Okay, so this question comes from Sumit in India. What are your thoughts on the current global job market? It's been a tough spot for the past 2 or 3 years, and I'd love to hear how you are seeing things evolve.
That's a great question. For a long, long, long time, most kids coming out of school and most kids trying to climb the ladder look towards big companies as their primary opportunity. I think that's reversing now, again, because of AI. Big companies are looking to cut. and save and use AI as a way to become more effective, more efficient, more optimized with fewer people. Small companies, on the other hand, don't have the resources to make the investment in AI. They don't have the people that have the fungible time just to say, okay, in a company of 400 people or 40 people or 4 people, we have somebody whose only job is going to be AI. They don't have that. So somebody who's coming out of school, who now is growing up and is kind of an AI native, is going to have a big opportunity. And so I think there's a real opportunity for kids coming out of school, younger kids recently out of school that are confident with AI to go to smaller companies and be able to walk in and have your differentiation be that you understand business and AI and can combine the two.
You use the phrase AI native. It seems like every generation has a technology that the ability to be native is critical. But AI feels somehow different. Is there a chance for the rest of us who are not, like me, native?
Yeah, I mean, it's no different than, back when the internet first started happening in the mid-'90s. I remember talking to people and they were like, oh, my kid's a genius. They wrote this webpage, and that seems so mystical and so different, right?
Yeah.
And that's the way it feels now with AI. Once people get confident and use it, like I would go out and give speeches over the last 2 years, 3 years, say, how many people use ChatGPT or the equivalent? 2, 3 hands would raise it. Now I can go talk to people in a, old age home and everybody's using it. And so it's not about, whether or not you'll be an AI native per se. It's just, are you confident and willing to try?
Are you willing to try? Are you willing to mess up? This question actually concerns ageism. In fact, a lot of you have thoughts and comments about ageism. I think we've unleashed something in the chat here. This one comes from Adam in London, who asks, any advice for me? 56-year-old ex-CEO leaving startup and academia to return to the senior executive world. And age discrimination, to his experience, is rife.
Yeah, you're right. There's absolutely no question that you are right. It's not so much age as it is salary. Because when we're in our 50s, and by the way, as someone who's out of their 50s, you're young. You're young. You're not old.
I love hearing that.
Yeah. But the problem is salary requirements. Because I've earned it, I've been paid this amount at these companies, I expect that that's what I should get paid.
Yep.
That's the problem. If you're starting again in a different industry, you almost always have to take a step back and then prove yourself going forward. And that's it's hard, right? But it's the unfortunate reality of the world we live in.
Okay, this question comes from Gina in Pennsylvania. What would you advise for someone downsized in their 50s and looking to pivot into something new?
Depends what you want to do, right? And what your financial pressures are.
Yeah.
At some level, you just have to get a job, because you got to do what you have to pay the bills. And I was always of the attitude, there's no job beneath me. When I got fired and I was in Dallas, I got a job as a bartender. As I started my new company, nothing wrong with being a bartender / barback. So you just got to find a way to pay your bills first. And if you can do that, regardless of what the job is, even if you have to pull back and downsize your personal life, that gives you some flexibility. But just like the previous question, the hard part is recognizing it's a mess right now.
Yeah.
Right? That you have to take a step back. You have to pull back. It's very analogous to a startup that didn't succeed and the founders have got to find another way or, just trying to hold on, have got to, cut back on a lot of people. Yeah. That's the issue.
Okay, this question comes from Sumit in India who says...
We're big in India.
I know, we are. It's great to have you all. Salary advice often sounds good, but fails in practice. So how can I navigate it effectively when it comes up with recruiters? Recruiters are often not the decision maker, so it's like an interesting...
Yeah, I mean... I wouldn't worry so much about salary. Salary is a marker for a way for you to look good, right? I'm above 100,000. I'm above 200,000. That means I'm really good at what I do, right? But you got to look at what position you're in personally and financially.
Yeah.
sometimes, again, it's not about you. It's just about getting the job so you can pay your bills and getting in the game so that you can prove yourself.
Yep.
Because most of your upside won't come from your starting salary. It'll come from what you're able to do in your raises and promotions going forward. So I was always of the attitude, just get me in the game. I'll be good. Let me just play, and then I'll get my just rewards at that point.
I love that. Getting in the game. This question comes from Kyoko in Zurich. It's a very specific, particular business question. How can startups merge or collaborate to capture market share without relying on big companies, and to know if the M&A is right beyond just the numbers?
So startups rarely collaborate.
No.
And the reason for that is, as a startup, you just want to stay in business and you want to focus on your core competencies so that your customers appreciate them. And, I had this conversation with one of my startups 3-4 days ago.
Yeah.
We want to work with this company. We want to work. I'm like, no, you have to win the battles you're in. Startups, when you find yourself trying to, work with all these other people and do these other things, usually means you're afraid. You're afraid that something's not going right with your core business. Because if everything was going in the way it needed to, you would be so focused on just getting more and more and more of those customers and making them happy and getting referrals from them that you don't have time to think about other startups or bigger companies. Now, if you've grown your startup to the point where you think it's time for some M&A, then talk to your industry or go to trade associations and see what they have to say about your company, because they'll give you good feedback that's relative to the other people in your industry.
And that to me feels like something that I've heard you talk about. It's in your book, this idea of focusing on the core. Especially when you're small and your resources are constrained.
You got to win the battles you're in.
Yeah.
You can drown in opportunity.
This question comes from Vilmantas in Lithuania. We've got a very global crew today.
Yes, we do. My grandparents are from Lithuania, Darbinė.
Awesome. How can a small business owner get noticed by decision makers at big companies and avoid being overlooked simply because they're small?
You got to show up. You got to go where they're going to be. Like when I was a one-person organization, I would go to trade shows. I would go to network mixers. I would go to restaurants. I don't care, right? I would go into stores, anywhere where somebody who could potentially be a customer would be. So go where your customers are. Just show up. Have a conversation. You have to be able to sell. Sales cures all, right?
Right.
And so if you don't love your product or service so much that you don't think you're helping the people you can talk to, right, by showing up and telling them what you do, then you don't have enough confidence in your product. Maybe it's not the right product or service for you. But if you love it so much and you just think it's the greatest product, you're doing them a favor by showing up, maybe not at dinner, but at trade shows or wherever, and just saying, hey, I just want to tell you, hey, my name is Mark. I've got this company, Micro Solutions, where we do integrations. And I think I can save you a lot of money. Here's my email. Can I get your email or somebody that I can talk to? 10 seconds, boom, gone. Either they'll say yes or no.
Can anybody become better at selling?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you just have to remember one thing. Every no gets you closer to a yes. I've had the door slammed on me. I've had, people laugh at me. I've had people just turn their backs on me. And I would just tell myself, okay, that's one no out of the way that gets me closer to a yes.
None of that feels good. So how do you manage the not feeling good part of it?
It just sucks. I mean, I got all these cliches. You got to remember why you started.
Yeah.
Why are you there? Why are you doing this? That's your motivation. Yes, this is a no, but one yes. Oh, another saying, right? It doesn't matter how many times you fail. When it comes to business, as a startup, as an entrepreneur, it doesn't matter how many times you fail. You only got to be right one time. Yeah. You don't know about all the businesses I started that sucked, right? You just see me here. You just got to be right one time.
I mean, that sounds really good, Mark. And I take that out into the world, and I need to figure out how to manage the ego hit of the rejection. If you could leave us with some big idea around that, I feel like that would catapult all of us forward.
Nobody cares about your ego but you. Get over it.
Yeah.
Why are you there?
Yeah.
What's your motivation?
Yeah.
There's no straight line for any entrepreneur.
Yeah.
I don't care who it is.
Yeah.
They have all failed.
Yeah.
Elon has failed. I've failed. Everybody else has failed.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter who. So, you're not alone. So don't it's not a reflection that should impact your ego. It's more, why are you there?
Yeah, I love that. This question comes from Catherine, who is coming to us from Glasgow. Catherine says, looking back, what's the one principle you've consistently applied in business that has mattered more to your success than timing, capital, or even the idea itself?
Be nice. It took me a long time to learn that. When I got fired, started Micro Solutions, and brought on a partner, and we used to always yell at each other. Yeah, we liked each other. We're still friends, right?
Right.
But I would yell, right? And then somebody pulled me aside. Todd Wagner pulled me aside and said, "You're making people afraid of you because you're so driven and you're so focused. You're like, and you don't suffer fools, right? If you don't agree with them, it's just like you get right to the point. Be nice. You'll get a lot more done." And he was right.
Okay, what's the difference between being nice and extending people more latitude than your business necessarily needs you to?
They're not mutually exclusive, right? I mean, you can be nice and give someone bad news.
Mm-hmm.
You can be nice and fire somebody. It's not easy to do. It's painful, but just showing people that you care goes a long, long way because people have lives outside of work. And, I'm not here to tell you that every business is a family. I don't believe in that. Mm-hmm. But successful businesses, entrepreneurs or CEOs align the mission of the organization and the entrepreneur themselves personally aligns it with all their employees. Yep. Because if you can align, no matter what the job of that employee is, their personal goals with what you're trying to accomplish, they're going to respect you, right? And your company is going to be a lot more successful. It's when everybody doesn't understand your dream or your mission and they're not aligned, that's when things go south. And that's when there's a lot of friction and stress. And even then, you try to be nice, but you've got to get alignment.
That was the one, the only, Mark Cuban. If you want to see more of this conversation, well, go to the show notes for a link to the longer conversation. If you're a premium member, it'll unlock right away. And if you want to be in touch with Mark, well, I'm here to tell you he really does answer his own emails. So shoot him an email. Now, there is a ton of information that I am going to take away from this conversation. There are a few things I want to make sure that you get. Okay, first, Mark has this great formula for trustworthiness. He says it equals your transparency divided by your own self-interest. Seriously, this is a great tool. You should apply it to the people in your lives and to yourself. Number 2, sometimes betting on yourself, especially if it means going in a new direction. Well, it's going to mean taking a little pay cut, a little step back in terms of where you are in any hierarchy. That's part of what it means to really take a risk and bet on yourself. Mark says to give it time. Really, time here and work is going to pay off, or at least position you for your next thing. And number 3, now this one is for those of you who are searching for your next job. It's no secret. I mean, it really is a reality that big companies are making big cuts as they get ready for AI to do more and more work. Mark suggests that you actually look for your opportunity among the smaller companies, the companies that may need you in a different way and give you room to grow and explore. As always, we're going to get together this week for office hours on Wednesday afternoon at 3 p.m. Eastern. That'll be me and our senior producer, Sarah Storm. We get together with all of you, and there are a lot of you who show up week after week to chat with us and with each other. If you haven't come yet, well, consider this your invitation. You can find us on the LinkedIn news page. You can check the link in the show notes, or you can follow me, Jessi Hempel, on LinkedIn. And finally, if you enjoyed this episode, but you were listening to it, I want you to keep in mind that this is a particularly good one to see. I mean, Mark was a TV star for 15 seasons. So check us out on YouTube. If you're looking for us, just go to YouTube and search Hello Monday with Jessi Hempel, and we will pop right up. Thanks so much for joining me this week in the studio. I'll be right back here next Monday with more Hello Monday. Hello Monday is a production of LinkedIn News. Lolia Briggs and Rachel Karp produce our show. Sarah Storm is our senior producer. Sound design and engineering by Asaf Gadron. Our theme music was composed just for us by the mysterious Breakmaster Cylinder. Michaela Greer is a friend of the show forever. Kyle Ransom Walsh is editor-at-large of Editorial Graphics. Dave Pond is head of production and creative operations. Courtney Coop is head of original programming. Dan Roth is the editor-in-chief of LinkedIn. I'm Jessi Hempel, and this is Hello Monday. See you next week.